Welcome to Module 3. This module is about making the UN, UDHR, and SDG connection do real work. The purpose is to help the audience understand why the issue is important, what principle or commitment is involved, and what action makes sense. By the end of this module, we'll be able to choose the most useful frame, explain why it fits, and translate it into language an audience can understand. A project doesn't need to use all three lenses. The first risk is using the UN, UDHR, or SDGs like a label. A project can say it relates to an SDG and still not explain why we should care about the issue or what should happen next. The stronger version names the actual principle: accountable institutions and public participation. That gives us a clearer path to evidence, message, and action. A useful lens is not the one that lets us mention the most frameworks. It is the one that helps the audience see the issue more clearly. For the congressional example, the UN lens is primary because the project is about US participation, diplomacy, and funding. A UDHR or SDG lens might still be relevant, but it should support the main argument rather than crowd it. A UN lens is especially useful when the project is about the UN system, international cooperation, diplomacy, or the role of the United States in global problem solving. The frame should explain what the UN relationship makes possible. In the congressional example, this lens helps us connect the local constituent message to a larger question: whether the United States remains a reliable participant in collective problem solving. A UDHR lens helps us name the human stakes. This can be powerful, but it needs care. The UDHR is a foundational human rights document and a common standard of achievement. It inspired legally binding treaties, but we shouldn't casually present it as if it creates a direct enforceable rule for every local issue. Good framing is principled and accurate at the same time. The SDGs are easy to use poorly because the goals are so broad. If we only cite a title, the frame may not add much. The stronger move is to identify the relevant target or implementation principle. For example, a health project might connect to access, prevention, equity, or emergency preparedness. Also, we should be clear that the SDGs are not legally binding. They are a global agenda and accountability framework. This is the core storytelling structure for the module. Start with something concrete. Add evidence so the claim is credible. Then name the lens in a way that clarifies what is at stake. Finally, offer an action that fits the audience and the pathway to change. If the lens only appears in the final sentence, it's probably not shaping the strategy. Here is the recurring example in the full story structure. The concrete condition is congressional authority over U.S. participation and funding. The evidence comes from CRS and from the budget process. The UN lens is the value of reliable international cooperation. The action could be constituent education, a meeting with congressional offices, or a clear request to support funding and engagement. Later modules will help us decide whether that is public education, legislative education, or lobbying. This module's deliverable is a reusable framing statement. It doesn't need to be perfect, just clear enough for peers to test. The statement should say what the issue is, what evidence shows it matters, which lens is being used, how that lens helps the audience understand the stakes, and what action the project is moving toward. Accuracy is critical. We can use values language and take care not to overstate what the source says. A good habit is to use careful verbs. For example, say that an issue connects to a goal, reflects a principle, or implicates a right unless the legal or policy relationship is direct and documented. For funding or congressional claims, we should use primary or nonpartisan sources such as CRS, Congress.gov, UN documents, and official agency materials. A possible framing example is, because Congress helps determine whether the United States is a reliable UN partner, this project uses a UN lens to connect constituent education to support for constructive international cooperation. This closes the module and points you to next steps. Before our next module, take some time to draft your framing statement and identify any weak spots. Mark places where a source needs to be checked, a target needs to be identified, or a partner or affected community perspective needs to be added. The next module will help you choose a strategic direction once the issue and frame are clear enough to test. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again in Module 4.